Hosted by Ed Steer and Dan Bolter, Life in Digital explores the ever-changing media landscape with today's industry leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of our Life in Digital podcast. I'm joined here by Suzanna, founder and CEO of ESB. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
No worries. So I guess just to kick things off, Suze, I think a lot of our followers will know a lot about ESB already, but for those that don't, it would be good just to get a quick run through of the business for those that haven't heard of you guys before.
Cool. Well, we basically help brands with customer acquisition, and we do that through basically our community of email records. So we've got 17 million consumers in the UK, and we essentially help brands either amplify out their own CRM to a new audience, grow their subscriber base, so get them more first-party data, or we take that email audience and we utilise it in other channels, so you can get this one-to-one journey across like programmatic, social, email, and then even offline to postal.
Amazing. Yeah, perfect.
That's us in a nutshell.
Perfect. And I know you've been in the industry for a while, around 20 years, is it?
Yeah.
What first attracted you to that kind of world of digital marketing and email?
Well, actually, so I was, this was only meant to be a 6-month stopgap. And I was meant to be doing a master's in law, so was travelling, going back to a master's in law. And then I started in the industry and I was like, oh, I actually really enjoy it. And I guess it's more my kind of people, like it was less corporate. And so, I came back from travelling and just decided, actually I'm going to stick in the digital world. I just kind of loved at that point, I think also where it was first up and coming, it was really social and there was quite a lot of creativity in the space.
Nice. And how's your kind of perspective changed with that over the years as well?
Oh, so maybe I'm a bit hardened at some level. I still love our industry, and like I get so passionate about like what you can do now compared to back then. But I do think sometimes we lost the edge of creativity where it's now coming so, not necessarily bad about the data-driven side, but where brands are so like ROI hard focused that they can't see that you actually need, it's more than just ROI. In order to get the ROI, you need the creativity still. Yeah. And that's a bit sometimes I miss from the beginning bit, and like having to educate brands on like why that is still important. Yeah.
And do you think that's coming back at all, or do you think that's gone?
I think at the moment you're really, and you've probably seen it like across comments and like LinkedIn and things where everyone's like, the branding space is going now, brand performance, there's constant talk about attribution, like how do you hit that ROI last click. I think at the moment, just with like consumer spend strained, tracking harder than it ever has been. I think at the second, it is very much focused on proven ROI and less about the creative elements of it. But I think that will soon flip, especially with like AI coming in and like giving people the ability to do more for less in a way, that hopefully that will spark like a whole new creative view.
And you prefer that side?
I just think, I would say like if you want to get a better ROI at the bottom of the funnel, just give someone a discount, a high conversion rate. You know, it's not hard to sell something for cheap. But actually, if you want someone to really buy into your brand, get that great lifetime value, then you really got to be like, how do I engage them? And creativity is what engages them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like lovely images or, you know, we see it now even on like filming like podcasts. Like actually, people just value someone speaking to the screen. But I think it's just thinking out of the box of like tactics you can use without going out or just shove a 50% off sale on or a 10% off voucher.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then I know that you took ESB through the management buyout in 2023, right? So tell us a little bit more about that. What kind of drove you to take that leap and kind of go ahead with that?
So two sides. I've always been like super passionate about like email as a channel, but also as an ID. And when we first started ESB, we wanted to create an easy way for people to use email as an acquisition tool, and bring in transparency because it's quite a murky space. But also this idea that email could be an ID, not just a communication channel. And like every year we were like, the cookie's going to die. It never died. And I think
keeps going back.
Keeps going back. But by 2023, it is at the point where now people are like, okay, the cookie might be here in some form, but it's not the same form as it's
Yeah.
been. So I think for me that was a really exciting time. And also, again, like contrary to what I said at the beginning, there is a nice thing in the industry that people are more concerned with results, because I've always believed that marketing should deliver you results. So then also that was a great time for me to take on the business, because I was like, something I'm hugely passionate about is making sure like whatever a client spends, they get a good return for it.
Yeah. So it felt like the right time.
Yeah, definitely. On the flip side, so I actually started the business with my dad.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say, like, as much as like starting a business with someone in your family is good for reasons like, in one level you can always trust them and all those things, it was also the worst thing you could ever do. And like, really, it put a lot of like strain on like your father-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
And so taking buying back his shares was just a really personally good moment for me, because it's allowed me to rebuild that relationship as like a father-daughter, not seeing it as like a business.
So, yeah. Oh, that's really nice. I guess that was really rewarding for you as well.
Yeah, massively. Like it's probably the one thing I like. The MBO was less to me about taking on the business, because I had run the business on my own from 2018 anyway.
Yeah.
So I stepped away then, but more from like just a personal, like those ties are gone.
Yeah.
Go back to focusing on like that relationship as it should be.
Yeah, and since becoming like the CEO, obviously the culture and stuff has changed massively. Like, what steps have you taken there? How has that kind of played out?
Oh, so I still think there's so much I need to do, like culturally, where you realise that you run a business and some of your bad traits, you're like, oh damn, I've trained this into my team, and like I need to like train that out, but it's training out to myself. But some of the things that I'm really pleased we've kind of drummed in of changing is like Albert Einstein, like the definition of insanity. So it's kind of like doing the same thing over and again, and just making sure people are questioning, like, are we doing the same thing and expecting a different result?
Yeah.
And then another big thing is like question everything. Like that might have worked a year ago, but does it still work now? Like, and remove our own biases, because we had a couple of things where people were like, that's impossible, we'd never be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, is it impossible?
Yeah.
And then we like have smashed through those targets, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, that's just probably our like held belief, like, and actually it isn't the reality.
And have you found that them cultural shifts have kind of impacted how the business is performing?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And now we're at like the next stage of that. So what I was saying about like questioning everything in our own biases, we had like views on like, in the email space, deliverability is like everything, and you're constantly like, how do you improve deliverability and things? And then we look at like how many people are active in our pool. Not overall, but like have clicked in the last 30 days. And one of the big beliefs was that you can never get up to like 1 million people clicking in the last 30 days. And we smashed through that in like the space of like 6 months. And that was a really big moment. And like the team were like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then I think it opened up to them being like, well, you know, anything is possible.
So have you got another target that you're trying to beat? Has it kind of moved up?
Yeah, now when I even drilling them on like Gmail's like one of everyone's bane of everyone's life. I think it's similar to SEO. You're constantly trying to be like, how do we get better placement in Gmail? So now there's like a target on that, and I think they're all like, it's like, oh God, here Suze goes again.
Yeah. Well, I know your work over the years is taking you across different markets and territories with like Freemax and ESB now as well. How has that kind of influenced your approach to kind of running the business?
Oh, so our like mission statement like is make every connection personal. And I think that's like when you look into other markets, you're like, okay, they might speak a different language or they might do things in a different way, but actually it's just about finding that connection. And then like once you have a connection, whatever it may be, whether it's work or like a more personal connection, then you can have a relationship. And like I think sometimes you like walk into this and you're like, oh, it's really hard. Like, I'll give you an example, like France, you're like, you know, I don't speak the language. They're actually quite different in the way they work to us, like culturally. But then you like find like the green shoots of like, oh, you know, we both have family, or you know, children, or things like that, or we've both been to a place, and you build on those relationships. And I think it's just remembering that, like anything may seem daunting at the beginning, but just find that like personal connection, and
Yeah.
then you can expand and grow.
And do you find as well that working across like Europe and stuff differs a lot to the UK? Like, do you find your approach differs a lot?
Yeah, I definitely like maybe this sounds bad, like their longer lunch culture, like not as
That
like
sounds great.
yeah, I know. It was like almost like you'll be like, oh, okay, like they want to do a lot more socialising. Like I think we all socialise, but it's more like I feel like the US of one extreme, and then we're the next, and then you go into.
Do you think like our socialising is like business, and then like Europe is actually like
like more
social?
wine and dining? Like I remember like just doing some work in Italy, and then they invited me out for like 3 days to their office to come and they like introduce you to everyone, and in a way I was like, this is strange, but then I was like, okay, I guess this is just how they want you to feel part of like the family, but the team.
Do you prefer that way, or?
Yeah, I do. I really, and maybe I'm old school, but I have missed, and you're starting to see it back, but like the lack of like face to face now.
Definitely.
And like, you know, before you'd be like, oh, we're starting to work together, should we go out for lunch, grab coffee, you know, those kind of things. And now it feels like you're dragging people out.
It's harder to get people out, isn't it? Which is a shame, I think it's because it's the working from home culture as well, right?
Massively.
There's pros and cons, but I do feel like that kind of face-to-face interaction is dipped because of that.
100%. And as much, don't get me wrong, like videos are great, but you just don't like
it's not the same, is it?
No, and they kind of work sometimes one-on-one, but if you've got lots of people together, like someone's not engaged there at like some point, or they've got the camera off, or they miss what you said, like nothing beats in person.
Of course. And then taking it back to ESB, so we were speaking before and you mentioned email, like the passport to the internet. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you mean by that?
I guess if you have a think about like your day, a day in the life of you as an internet user, like you go into Amazon, you log in, you put your email address in, you go to a social platform like Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be, you put your email address in, and everything now, like you can't go online and use the internet, you can't buy products unless you have an email address. And so it's kind of like this passport to the internet, as well as a communication channel. And I don't think anything will replace it as that kind of key, because you can see them people trying to get like phone numbers or use your phone number as an ID. I think people are less willing to use their phone number because, well, you might call me and I don't want to speak to you on the phone, so I'm going to give you a fake phone number. Whereas giving away an email, even though it's personal, it still feels like, well, I can control that conversation.
I see. And do you think it's important with that in mind for brands to kind of rethink how they use email in their strategy?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like personally, like I'm a big believer in like collect as much first party data as you can. Like wherever you're doing marketing, you should be like, how do I grab like an email address or some kind of piece of first party data? And to me, it's not because like email is just a communication channel. Like email's great, and like, you know, engagement rates are really high, it's really personal, etc. But it's the fact you can take that email address and you can use it in like programmatic. You can use it in social, you can take it offline if you have the postal address and use it to do a postal send. There's so much
you can do with
it.
Right? Amazing. And on that as well, I guess email kind of has been overlooked a little bit in the industry. It'd be good to hear your thoughts on that. Like a lot of people obviously speak about it in like a retention way. I know ESB are very much acquisition driven, right? So tell us a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, so not many, and it's weird because in America it's a lot bigger thing, but in the UK not many people think of it as an acquisition tool. And there's a lot of nerves around like, oh, is it compliant? We built the community with the view that they are opting in to receive third-party content, and that's how we've kind of scaled up that way. But you basically essentially using it as an acquisition tool. Most people find CRM works really well for them, but they're limited by the scale and the cost of acquiring new customers. Whereas you can just mirror that onto a new audience, and it is a really effective way to grow and engage and control the conversation you have with them. Because once you start talking to them, you can go back. It's not like you have to wait for them to come back onto that platform.
Do you think brands are kind of missing a trick there then, and not kind of getting the full potential of email?
Yeah, I think the problem is that people still plan in very traditional ways, even though almost how consumers move around the internet isn't traditional anymore. So it's very much like, I'm going to put some spend into display, I'm going to have a social budget, and no one's got like an email budget. That always sits with the retention team, which then in a sense are like, well, we don't really have a budget, we're just here retaining. And I also think the other problem is that emails are always seen as a cheap channel. So when times are hard in a brand, everyone's like, send more emails. And so it almost devalues itself in a way. So I think there's two things. It's like the view that email is just a retention channel. And then I think it gets a bad rep, not because it doesn't deliver results, but it's always seen as that like last minute, I need to blast out and get more sales. We'll go there because it's cheap and low cost.
Have you seen like a shift, like during your time at ESB, have you seen a shift from it moving more, spoken about retention to acquisition, or is it still, do you think, more in that retention sort of language?
Oh, definitely. We still have to educate people on like how you can use it as an acquisition tool. So yeah, I would still say that is there, but I think it's just in the UK, there's just not that many people who do what we do, for one. So it isn't as mainstream, and I guess just how agencies plan. No, not many agencies have like an email dedicated team.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And your addressable data set as well, I know that gives loads of insights for brands and things like that. How can brands actually use that and utilise that for both email but also beyond email campaigns as well?
So essentially, we've got 17 million consumers, and across that we've got about 440 different data points, and they include things like demographics. So the consumers have told us things like, I have a child, I live at this address, I'm this gender, etc. And then we also look at like what they're opening, clicking and transacting on in their inbox, so a really rich like purchase intent. And then we overlay like publicly available data and also build models off that. And so when a brand comes to us, we can either build like a lookalike off their audience, or we create an audience based on those ones. And then we can activate that as an email campaign, or we can just take that audience and make it available in their programmatic platform of their choice, or directly into Meta. So essentially like...
So it can be used for loads of stuff outside.
Yeah.
What has it been used for most, would you say, or is it?
Oh, definitely email. Like email's been the number one thing that brands use us, but we're doing a lot more around like, I guess as the cookies kind of diminishing, consent is getting harder on CMPs to get with some of the changes around that. I've seen a lot of people being like, how do we create these omni-channel journeys? And basically if you can create one audience, you can retarget them across and know you're speaking to the same person at every point, rather than being like, they didn't consent here on the CMP, so we can't retarget that person, or we are retargeting them, but we think it's the same person, we don't know it's the same person. This gives you control over that.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, brilliant. And on that topic around like identity resolution, I know a lot of brands are struggling with that. How does like email ID compare with other solutions in that area? Oh,
so I think there's no like golden bullet of like email ID is like the be all and end all.
Well, let's say it is.
But I think there's a couple of things, like obviously when we're looking at emails and ID, we're attaching other IDs to it. So we'll bring in like IP address, we'll look at browser agent, like maids or anything like that to create a full view of that person. I think the one good thing about email is, from a consumer and a privacy lens, they understand like it's quite tangible to them, like, okay, I can unsubscribe and everything gets removed. Whereas when they're opting in and out of cookies, I don't think they necessarily understand like how it works. Whereas an email address, they can be like, I'm taking that email address away and unsubscribing from you, I get it.
It's quite easy to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think from that way, that's one of the big benefits. And two, it's the fact it's like it is generally one-to-one. It's like it is this person, it's not that device, and you can connect so much more information to it. Like if you're looking at say location, it's like, well, if they give you their postal address and you're appending that to the email, you're not relying on say IP as like your best guess on where they're based. You're actually looking at where they're physically based, like where they live.
Yeah, I see. Amazing. And you mentioned as well, like you touched on it briefly a minute ago as well, about how ESB is kind of bridging that gap between email and programmatic and sort of other channels and stuff. How has that kind of changed over the years, and more importantly, how do you kind of see that changing over the years to come?
Oh, that has actually changed. Like I said, we were always like, yes, the cookies died, and then it never died. And so you were always like, oh, use the email audiences, and everyone's like, there's so much scale in like third-party data. Whereas like we have seen like year on year, like people are like, no, we need to look at other ways. We need to get more exacted. I think brands are like, obviously, like, how do we stop over targeting? How do we get better targeting mechanisms? So we're definitely seeing the use of like email data more prevalent in those platforms. And also I think the ability to connect, like before it was always like, how do you work out a way of getting the email data into programmatic platforms? And I think as people have had to look outside the box of just like cookies and like more looking at fingerprints and things, the ability to ingest email data has improved. So yeah, I think it's just massive change, and I think it would just only improve over the.
And what about when those cookies eventually finally go? How do you think that would affect it?
Not so much, because I think cookies are like, the problem always with like using cookie to email was getting the scalability of it. I used to always say, like, texting used to hate me, but like, you've got to speak the same language. So like, someone's cookie might be different to another one's cookie. So I feel like it will have a minor impact because it's only a small element of how you match an email address into the programmatic world.
I see. Okay, cool. And then what about, I guess that brings us on to AI, which everyone's talking about. How is that affecting it?
So I actually I feel this is going to be the most interesting thing in like digital over the next year. More from the sense of like, if you think like, are we going to be the people using the internet? Like, if you think about agents coming up, and even like you saw OpenAI can, what you might have not seen, but it can order your Amazon order. You can get a shopping list, it can go and transact on that.
Can do anything now, really. Can't
well, so then it's like, are consumers going to be browsing the internet, or is it going to be their agent? And therefore, like, will traditional channels like display be as prevalent? Because if it's not me on a website, it's my agent.
I see.
Am I going to see, is the agent going to go, oh, by the way, there was a nice ad for like a BMW along the side? No, they're not. So then I think channels like email and personal ones and out of home and things will come bigger. But I think where it will affect email a lot is now everything's about like nice images and pretty things like that. But actually, you might think in a year's time that people are just going to receive like a summary of their inbox, like you received an email from blah blah and it was about this. And you know, it might be a daily digest of here's all your emails, which means your copy has to be really good, and you have to think about how do you summarize well to get your point across to make a person actually want to go on and read and click on that email.
I see.
So I think it'll be a swing from being like amazing images to amazing copy.
No, I know what you mean. Have you like kind of adopted any AI into the way you guys work? Have you like implemented it? Because I had another podcast a couple of weeks ago, and a guy said that basically they've changed the whole way they work based on AI. Have you found that? Or? Yeah,
it's been one for us. Like, I think it's like a few sides. Like, emails, actually, you get so much data. Like it depends on what domain they open on, like Gmail, Hotmail, what device they're on, what else is in the inbox at that time, your sender's reputation, all of these things, like the subject line, the creative. There's just so much data. So using AI to basically help you find the patterns and trends is really important. And we're building out an AI scheduler. So rather than basically it would use all these data points to say you should send this to Suzanna Chaplin at this time, and kind of taking out that human element of it, still having some human element in it, because I think you do always need that. But then also just in like, I, for example, like I waffle, you might have noticed. And like just we're finding like things like putting things in and being like, can you make this punchy, or like summarize this? Like,
does it work well? Do you find that works well?
I think it didn't at first. I've noticed in the last like 6 to 8 weeks it has got so much better. And I've been testing out like Perplexity's like deep research tool, and that is so good. Like, especially when you're like prepping for like a new brand you're working with. So you can like you can just basically go on there, download it, like, or have it on your browser, and you select like deep research. So I could be like, give me everything on Spear digital recruitment, like who are their audience, who are their main competitors, what do customers think of them, and it literally within 5 minutes will give you a really detailed summary.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, which means like doing like some prep work, or even if you're trying to come up with like what's a good angle for this brand, like as in like when we're thinking about creatively, like how are we going to help them acquire new customers, and the content for the email, having that kind of research then is like, oh actually this is a great idea, we should do that for them.
That could be used for so many. I was just thinking like even for candidate interviews and stuff on our end would be amazing. Okay, cool. And then I know you've helped loads and loads of brands over at ESB. I think you work with about 600 of brands now, right? So what is kind of next there, and how do you see email evolving now?
Oh, so definitely like we're seeing it more and more about not just being email, but using multiple channels. So this whole idea of like, stop thinking about us just for email, think about it as an omni-channel. Like I'm massive, I use this analogy at the moment, but you know, like the whole give a man a fish and they can feed for a day. I think the same, like we're really big into like grow your own first party data, and email's a tool to help you get those people, but it's like how can we help brands grow more of their own first party data. But probably the most exciting thing is that we're launching a new product next quarter, which is about email retargeting. So it's called site abandonment, essentially. We're calling it Optivo as a name, but it enables a brand, if someone comes onto their website, browses and bounces off, and they don't identify themselves, e.g. subscribe, add anything to the cart, we match that back to an email address and allow them to retarget.
Nice,
So it's completely new to the market, and we think it will be a real game changer because obviously conversion rates on the site like 2-3%, so you're constantly having to try and get people back to the website, and retargeting pools are getting smaller because of like cookie and consent changes. So having the ability to match it to an email address and get them back, I think will be huge.
Yeah, nice. Okay, brilliant. And if you had like one piece of advice to give brands in like 2025 or the years to come about how to rethink how they're using email, what would you suggest to them?
Oh, definitely. It's not a communication channel. It's your ID, and it's your way to control your conversation with your customer. Like it's like everything's always in someone else's hand. Like if you build your audience on like TikTok or Meta, that's Meta's audience. That's not yours. Email's the only audience that is really yours, and you can control it, and you can choose where to use it and choose what you deliver to them and how you speak to them. So I just think it's like, think about it as it's your audience.
Do a lot of brands see it in that way, or is it mainly a communication channel for brands?
I think definitely a communication channel.
Really?
Like we hear it from like brands we speak to, especially in like retention teams. They're like, how do we prove to the business like the value of email? And you're like, because I think again email shoots itself in the foot because it does deliver like direct response and good ROIs. Like it's very tactical, and I think people need to reframe it to be like, no, it's a strategic asset.
Yeah, nice. Okay, amazing. Well, I guess that wraps us up, Suze.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us. And that's another episode. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Life in Digital. If you want to know more about our guest or any of the topics that we covered today, you can find out more in our show notes and on our website.